I'm Charlie Munger. I'm 99 years old. I'm worth about $2.5 billion. And I have some advice that's going to make every real estate agent in America hate me. Don't buy a house. I rented my primary residence for over 30 years. From my 40s through my 70s, I was a renter, not because I couldn't afford to buy. I was already a multi-millionaire. I rented because the math told me to rent. And while my neighbors were signing 30-year mortgages, hemorrhaging money on property taxes and maintenance, and convincing themselves they were building equity, I was taking that same money, investing it in businesses, and watching it compound at 15 to 20% per year. Let me give you a number that might shock you. The average American who buys a $400,000 house today will pay approximately $1.2 million for that house over 30 years. When you factor in mortgage interest, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and opportunity cost, $1.2 million for a house that will be worth maybe $600,000 in real inflation-adjusted dollars 3 decades from now. You want to know what that same $1.2 million becomes if you invested it instead at a conservative 10% annual return? $21 million. One choice gives you a house. The other choice gives you $21 million in financial freedom. And yet every financial guru, every parent, every well-meaning friend tells you the same thing. Buy a house. It's the American dream. You're throwing money away on rent. Build equity. Own something. They're wrong. And I'm going to prove it to you today using math, not emotion. Because real estate is the biggest financial decision most people make, and most people make it completely wrong. Now, if you ask someone how much does a $400,000 house cost, they'll say $400,000. Wrong. Dead wrong. That $400,000 house doesn't cost $400,000. It costs over $4 million when you account for everything. And I'm going to show you exactly how. But first, let me tell you why this myth persists. Why everyone from your parents to your financial advisor to every TV show keeps telling you to buy. It's not because home ownership creates wealth. It's because the real estate industry, the banks, and the government all profit massively when you buy a house. They don't profit when you build actual wealth. So they sell you a dream, and you buy it. Literally. I've watched this pattern destroy financial futures for 60 years. Smart people, educated people, high earners, all making the same expensive mistake. They think they're investing. They're not. They're consuming. They're buying an expensive place to live and calling it an investment. That's not investing. That's expensive consumption with a 30-year payment plan attached. So here's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to show you the real cost of buying a house, not the price tag, the real cost. Then I'm going to show you what that money becomes if you invest it instead. And finally, I'm going to give you alternatives, strategies that actually build wealth instead of consuming it. This is going to make you uncomfortable. Your parents won't agree. Real estate agents will hate me. But I'm 99 years old and worth billions. I don't need anyone's approval. I just need you to understand the truth. Let's go. The real cost nobody tells you about. If you ask someone how much a $400,000 house costs, they'll say $400,000. Wrong. Dead wrong. Let me show you what a $400,000 house actually costs, and I'm going to be conservative with these numbers. Reality is usually worse. First, the down payment. Most people put down 20%, which is $80,000. That's $80,000 you no longer have to invest. We'll come back to that number. Remember it. Now you finance $320,000 at 7% interest for 30 years. Your monthly payment is $2,129. Over 30 years, you'll pay $766,440 in total payments. That's $446,440 in interest alone. You just paid for the house twice, but we're not done, not even close. Property taxes, the national average is about 1.1% of home value per year. On a $400,000 house, that's $4,400 per year. Over 30 years, accounting for property value appreciation, you're paying roughly $180,000 in property taxes. Homeowners insurance, average cost $1,500 per year. Over 30 years, that's $45,000. Maintenance and repairs. The rule of thumb is 1 to 3% of home value per year. Let's be conservative and say 1.5%. That's $6,000 per year, or $180,000 over 30 years. And that's if nothing major breaks. New roof, $15,000. New HVAC system, $8,000. Foundation issues, $25,000. These things happen, they always happen. HOA fees, if you're in a neighborhood with an HOA, and most new developments have them, you're paying $200 to $500 per month. That's another $72,000 to $180,000 over 30 years. Utilities. Homeowners pay more than renters because houses are bigger. Figure an extra $100 to $200 per month. That's $36,000 to $72,000 over 30 years. Closing costs. You paid 2 to 5% to buy the house. On $400,000, that's $8,000 to $20,000. Then when you sell, you'll pay 6% in realtor commissions. If the house is worth $600,000 when you sell, that's $36,000 gone. Let's add it up. Down payment $80,000, mortgage payment $766,000, property taxes $180,000, insurance $45,000, maintenance $180,000, HOA fees $100,000 mid-range, extra utilities $50,000, closing costs plus selling commission $50,000. Total $1,451,440. You spent $1.45 million to own a house you bought for $400,000. And that's assuming nothing goes wrong. No divorce forcing you to sell at a loss. No job relocation. No housing market crash. No major repairs beyond the 1.5% average. Most people never do this math. They just sign the papers and feel proud. They think they're building equity. They're not. They're hemorrhaging money, the opportunity cost that destroys wealth. But here's the really painful part, the part nobody talks about. Let's talk about opportunity cost. That $80,000 down payment. What if you'd invested it instead at 10% annual returns? Which is not aggressive, that's just market average. $80,000 becomes $1.4 million in 30 years. The difference between your $2,129 mortgage payment and what you'd pay in rent, let's say $1,500 per month, is $629. If you invested that $629 per month for 30 years at 10%, you'd have $1.3 million. So by buying that house, you gave up approximately $2.7 million in investment returns. Let me say that again. By buying the house, you gave up $2.7 million. The house might be worth $600,000 in 30 years. You paid $1.45 million for it. You gave up $2.7 million in investment returns. Your total cost, $4.2 million. And for what? For the privilege of mowing your own lawn, fixing your own toilet, and being tied to one location for 30 years. This is why I rented. This is why Warren and I built our fortunes, by avoiding this trap. I've seen brilliant people, PhDs, doctors, engineers, all making this same mistake. They calculate everything else in their lives carefully. Then they buy a house because everyone says it's the smart thing to do. It's not smart, it's expensive. And most people spend their entire lives paying for this one decision. Why the myth persists and who profits from your ignorance? Now you might be thinking, Charlie, everyone can't be wrong. Home ownership has been the American dream for 100 years. And you'd be right, everyone believes it. But that doesn't make it true. Let me explain why this myth persists and who profits from keeping you ignorant. First, the real estate industry. There are over 2 million real estate agents in America. Their job is not to make you wealthy. Their job is to sell houses. They make 6% commission when you buy and 6% when you sell. On a $400,000 house, that's $24,000 per transaction. You think they're going to tell you renting is smarter? They need you to buy. Their mortgage depends on it. Literally. Banks love mortgages. It's one of their most profitable products. You're paying them $446,000 in interest over 30 years. They're not going to run ads saying rent and invest instead. They profit when you borrow. The bigger the loan, the more they make. The government subsidizes home ownership through mortgage interest deductions. Why? Because the construction industry is huge. Because homeowners vote. Because politicians need both. It's not about what's best for you financially. It's about what's best for the economy and their re-election campaigns. Your parents and grandparents got lucky. They bought houses in the 1960s and 70s when homes cost 2 to 3 times annual income. A house was $30,000. A salary was $15,000. Today, homes cost 6 to 10 times annual income. A house is $400,000. A salary is $50,000. The math that worked for them doesn't work for you. But they don't realize that, so they give you advice based on a world that no longer exists. There's also psychological bias. People who bought houses need to believe it was a good decision. It's called post-purchase rationalization. They'll find any reason to justify it. But I'm building equity. At least I'm not throwing money away on rent. My house is an investment. These are emotional arguments, not financial ones. They're lies people tell themselves to feel better about an expensive decision they already made. And here's the biggest reason the myth persists. People confuse net worth with wealth. Yes, after 30 years of payments, you own a house worth $600,000. Your net worth includes that $600,000. But can you spend it? No, not unless you sell the house. And where will you live then? You'll have to buy another house or rent. Real wealth is liquid assets that generate income. A paid-off house generates zero income unless you rent it out. It just sits there costing you property taxes and maintenance. It's not an investment. It's an expense you finished paying for. This is why you see so many people who are house rich and cash poor. They have $600,000 in home equity and $20,000 in retirement savings. On paper, they're doing well. In reality, they can't afford to retire because their wealth is trapped in an illiquid asset that generates no income. When buying actually makes sense. Now, I'm not saying you should never buy a house. I'm saying most people buy for the wrong reasons at the wrong time, under the wrong circumstances. There are situations where buying makes sense. Let me tell you when. Pay attention because these conditions are specific and rare. Situation 1. You're going to live in the same place for at least 10 to 15 years. If you know with certainty that you'll be in the same city, same neighborhood, same house for 15 plus years, buying might make sense because the transaction costs of buying and selling, maybe $60,000 to $80,000 total, get amortized over a longer period. But be honest with yourself. How many people actually stay in the same house for 15 years anymore? The average American moves every 7 years. If you sell in 7 years, you probably lost money on transaction costs alone. Situation 2. You're buying significantly below market value. If you can buy a house for 30 to 40% below market, maybe a foreclosure, estate sale, or distressed property, the math might work. Because you're buying an instant equity cushion that protects you from transaction costs and market fluctuations. But this takes expertise, cash, and patience. It's not go to an open house on Sunday and make an offer. It's hunting for deals for months or years until you find one that makes financial sense. Situation 3, you're going to house hack. Buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. Live in one unit, rent out the others. If the rental income covers your mortgage, property taxes, and maintenance, now you're essentially living for free while building equity. This is one of the few scenarios where home ownership creates wealth instead of consuming it. But notice, you're not buying a single-family home to live in. You're buying an income-producing asset that happens to have a unit you live in. That's investing, not home ownership. Situation 4. Your housing cost is so low that buying is comparable to renting. In some markets, usually small towns or rural areas, houses are cheap relative to incomes. If you can buy a $150,000 house with an $800 monthly payment and rent for a similar house as $750, the math is closer. You're not giving up much in opportunity cost. But in most American cities today, houses cost 6 to 10 times median income. That's when renting and investing becomes financially superior. Situation 5. You've already achieved financial independence. Once you have 2 to 3 million invested and you're financially free, buying a house with cash is fine. You're not giving up growth opportunities because you've already won the game. At that point, buy whatever house makes you happy. It's consumption, not investment, but you can afford to consume. But if you're still building wealth, if you're under 50 and don't have 7 figures invested, buying a house is probably the biggest obstacle to reaching financial independence. What you should do instead. So if you're not buying a traditional house, what should you do? Let me give you alternatives that actually build wealth. These are strategies I use. These are strategies that work. Alternative 1. Rent and invest aggressively. This is what I did for 30 years. Rent a place that's 30 to 50% cheaper than a mortgage payment would be. Take the down payment you didn't spend, plus the monthly savings, plus the maintenance savings, and invest all of it. Aim for $500 to $1,000 per month invested minimum. At $750 per month invested at 10% returns, you'll have $1.7 million in 30 years. That's more wealth than 95% of homeowners will ever have. And you had complete flexibility. You could move for a better job. You could relocate to a lower cost area. You weren't trapped. Alternative 2. House hacking with a multi-unit property. Buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex with an FHA loan. 3.5% down. Live in one unit, rent out the others. If you do it right, the rental income covers your mortgage and expenses. You're living for free while building equity. After a year, you can move out, rent your unit too, and the property should be cash flow positive. Then do it again. Buy another multi-unit. Live in one unit, rent the rest. Do this 3 to 4 times over 10 years, and you'll own 1 to 2 million in income-producing real estate. That's real wealth, and you did it while living essentially for free. Alternative 3, geographic arbitrage. Live in a low-cost area while working remotely for a high-paying job in an expensive city, or retire in a low-cost country. If you can make $100,000 per year working remotely and live somewhere where rent is $800 per month, you can save $50,000 plus per year. In 10 years, that's $500,000 saved plus growth. By age 45 to 50, you're financially independent. Compare that to making $100,000 in San Francisco, paying $3,000 in rent, and saving maybe $10,000 per year. That's the difference between retiring at 50 and working until 70. Alternative 4, REITs, real estate investment trusts. Want real estate exposure without the hassles of ownership? Buy REITs. You get real estate returns, monthly dividends, and complete liquidity. No toilets to fix, no property taxes, no tenant drama. A diversified REIT portfolio can give you 6 to 8% annual returns plus dividends. It's real estate investment without the time and money drain of actual ownership. Alternative 5, buy land, not structures. Structures depreciate and require maintenance. Land appreciates and requires nothing. If you must buy real estate, buy raw land in the path of growth. Hold it for 10 to 20 years. Sell when developers come knocking. I've made millions this way, and I never had to fix a roof or replace a water heater. Alternative 6, start a business instead. That $80,000 down payment could start a business. That $2,000 per month mortgage payment could be business investment capital. Return on a successful business, 20 to 50% annually or more. Would you rather own a house appreciating at 3 to 4% per year, or own a business growing at 20 to 30% per year? Every dollar you put into a house is a dollar you didn't put into a business. And businesses create wealth, houses consume it. Alternative 7, the boring one that works. Just invest in index funds. $500 per month into an S&P 500 index fund for 30 years at 10% returns equals $1.1 million. That's it. That's the whole strategy. Most people won't do it because it's boring. They want to build equity and own something tangible. Those are emotional desires, not financial strategies. I'll take the boring $1.1 million over the exciting $600,000 house every single time. The point is this: there are dozens of wealth-building strategies that are better than buying a primary residence. All of them create more wealth with less risk and more flexibility than traditional home ownership. But nobody talks about them because the real estate industry, banks, and the government all profit when you buy a house. They don't profit when you build wealth. So they sell you the dream, and most people buy it. Literally, the choice nobody wants to hear. Here's the question you need to ask yourself. Do I want to own a house, or do I want to be wealthy? Because for most people under age 50, in most markets you have to choose one. The math doesn't allow both. If you choose the house, you'll spend your prime earning and investing years making mortgage payments, paying property taxes, and fixing broken appliances. You'll reach 65 with a paid-off house worth $600,000 and maybe $100,000 in retirement savings. You'll be house rich and cash poor. And you'll have to work until you're 70 because you can't afford to retire. If you choose wealth, you'll rent modestly, invest aggressively, and reach 65 with 3 to 4 million in liquid assets generating $120,000 to $160,000 per year in passive income. You can retire at 55 if you want. You can travel. You can buy a house with cash if you still want one. You have options. One path leads to a house. The other path leads to freedom. Most people choose the house because they've been told it's the smart choice. It's not. It's the expensive choice that everyone mistakes for the smart choice. Let me tell you a story. I had a neighbor in the 1970s. Nice guy, engineer, made about the same income I did at the time. We started around the same place financially. He bought a house, $80,000 with a 30-year mortgage. I rented and invested. We'd talk over the fence sometimes. He'd tell me about his equity building up, his pride of ownership, his landscaping projects. I'd listen and nod. 30 years later, he owned his house free and clear. Worth about $350,000 by then. He was proud. He'd paid it off. He owned something. I had $15 million in liquid investments. Same starting point, same time frame, same area. Completely different outcomes. The difference? I understood opportunity cost. He understood pride of ownership. What you do with this knowledge is up to you. Here's the thing nobody wants to hear. Home ownership is consumption disguised as investment. You're not investing. You're buying a very expensive place to live and convincing yourself it's a smart financial move. It's not. It's an emotional move. And that's fine if you understand that's what you're doing. If you say, I know buying this house will cost me $2 million in opportunity cost over 30 years, but I really want a house, so I'm willing to pay that price, then fine, buy the house. At least you're making an informed decision. But most people don't know. They genuinely believe buying a house is building wealth. It's not. It's consuming wealth. You're trading money today and money tomorrow for the psychological benefit of ownership. And maybe that's worth it to you. But don't confuse it with investing. Real investing makes you wealthier over time. Buying a house makes you poorer over time compared to what you could have had if you'd invested instead. That's math, not opinion. So here's my advice. If you're under 50, if you're still building wealth, if you're not already financially independent, don't buy a house. Rent something modest. Invest the difference. Build real wealth. You can buy a house later with cash when you're rich. But if you buy the house now, you'll never get rich. I'm 99 years old. I've seen thousands of people make this mistake. I've watched them trade financial freedom for pride of ownership. I've watched them work into their 70s because they spent their wealth building years paying for a house instead of building investments. Don't be them. Rent, invest, build wealth. Buy the house later if you still want it. But whatever you do, stop believing the lie that home ownership creates wealth. It doesn't. It destroys wealth. The real estate industry just convinced everyone otherwise. Now you know better. What you do with that knowledge is up to you.